Let's talk through some ideas from the right and the left. Frank Sharry is an American immigration policy expert who last year served as an advisor to Kamala Harris's campaign. He's just been one of the authors of a report for British Future that argues a big expansion of the one-in, one-out scheme with France by maybe a factor of 10 or 20 could cut small boat crossings. And Rakib Ehsan is a senior fellow at the Right of Centre Policy Exchange think tank, and Rakib writes about immigration and social cohesion. Gents, thank you both for joining us. Rakib first, can you just tell me when President Trump offers idea number one, use the military, what is he talking about the military doing? What is using the military?
Well, I think in terms of using the military, I think one possibility is that Her Majesty's Armed Forces would help to track the small boats while they're crossing the English Channel. But we have to make it very clear that if we want to get to grips with the small boats emergency, Evan, that we have to focus on legal reforms. And I think that looks at how our human rights framework is currently constituted, our current relationship with the European Convention on human rights. So I think what's clear here is that all options are on the table. It's not unusual if you look across the world that there's military involvement when it comes to border security. But if we want to get to grips with the small boats crisis, that requires significant legal changes.
Yeah, but Rakib, I just want to go through, do you think he meant for it to make a very big difference? You'd use the military to push the boats back and you would say, we're not going to worry about the welfare of people in those boats. We're just not, we're going to block them coming in. Because I thought that idea had been promoted by the last government and was given up after achieving nothing.
Well, I think that the key thing here is that, from my perspective, if you are entering the UK without permission, that should result in a swift removal from the UK. And I think that the military can play a role in terms of that deterrent effect. I'm not going to speak or possibly speculate on what President Donald Trump meant, but that's my view.
OK, well, we'll come to your proposal in a moment. Let me talk to Frank Sharry. Now, Frank, in the report that you've been involved with this week for British Future, you say, contrary to what President Trump would say, you say, actually, in the last months, President Biden did manage to stop irregular immigration to the US at the southern border. What did he do? What happened there?
Sure. Well, let's stipulate that immigration was a disastrous political issue for Biden, and he mishandled it for 3.5 years, and it then helped Trump beat Kamala Harris. So politically, they mismanaged it terribly. But in the last few months, a hardy group of policy experts working in the White House figured out how to get more cooperation from Mexico, swift returns of people who cross the border illegally, and organized, controlled routes for people to come in a legal fashion. And what it produced was an 81% reduction in illegal border crossings. It went from 250,000 in December 2023 to 44,000 in December 2024. Now, the UK small boats crisis is not exactly the same, but you can see how the elements are relevant here. France needs to accept people who are returned. We've seen the first 3 happen. It needs to be ramped up. There needs to be organized routes so that there's an incentive for people to get in the queue. These are for migrants. Migrants should get in the queue rather than get in the small boat and risk a dangerous journey and entering illegally in the UK. So
Understood.
The combination gives you an opportunity to use control and compassion to produce a workable result.
OK, there's a proposal. Rakib, would you just like to comment on the proposal you've just heard, which the arguments made did actually work in the United States?
Well, I think here, when we're looking at the small boats crisis, I think one thing we have to recognise, we have a completely dysfunctional asylum system. It's completely overburdened what I consider to be illegal migration and people arriving on the English south coast. I think what's very clear is that we have to look at asylum from a security and integration perspective. And what I mean by that is that we have to ultimately be in the business of providing sanctuary, but that has to be done in very reasonable numbers.
Right. But what do you do? I don't want you. You're specifying the problem. I want to hear the solution. What do you do with people who have arrived irregularly or illegally? And we've heard from Frank, he would say, send them back to France if you can persuade France to take them. Do you agree that that is actually a solution and people would probably stop coming if they had a good chance of going back to France?
Listen, ultimately, I think that when you look at previous research we've done at Policy Exchange, one example being the Stopping the Small Boats report, Plan B, we're ultimately in the business of looking at this stopping the boats. We have to be willing to change our laws so that people are immediately deported once they cross the English Channel irregularly. We have to be very clear here that respect for the rule of law starts from the very beginning, and that includes respecting the fact that we have national borders here, and that we have to have a strong system which has to be respected by those who want to be provided with sanctuary.
And your emphasis is very much on the legal changes are needed as a sort of precondition to getting this done. But that is a point I want to put to you, Frank. In a way, aren't you actually agreeing with Rakib? You're both agreeing, everybody's agreeing, aren't they, that the way to stop people coming is to say, if you come, we send you back. And maybe you have to change the law to send them back. Maybe you have to sort of weaken the judges to send them back. But you're arguing that. Rakib's arguing that. He wants to send them back and change the law. I just wonder whether that is really, and even whether that's what President Trump would do, is send people back. I'm wondering whether that is now just becoming the preferred way of pretty well everybody across the political spectrum.
Well, our view is that you can do this in a way that's workable and humane. First of all, if you're going to send someone back, you need the cooperation of the country that's receiving them. In the United States, it took a long time to work with Mexico to get a meaningful partnership. Starmer and Macron are working very hard on a similar kind of partnership. You can't just send people back to a country that won't take them. So the idea of this routes and returns deal, it's just a proof of concept pilot project right now. But if it's ramped up and there's 25,000 legal slots that come through an organized and capped, orderly regime of arrivals that allows Britain to continue its international obligations to protect refugees, but at the same time, do away with the misuse and abuse of the asylum system by saying, if you come with a boat and pay a smuggler and risk your life, you are going to be met with a swift return to France and no entry into the UK. So that shift of incentives is, from our point of view, a solution that will meet with the majority of the British public who want a both-and workable solution of control and compassion, not a let's just be tough, throw people in the sea, or throw people back to France and have a confrontation with a neighbor and ally.
Yeah, OK, I understand. Frank Shari, that's who's been a co-author of the British Future Report, and Rakib Ehsan from Policy Exchange. Thanks to you both.